Broadcom Ltd may not like it, but a national security review of its bid for Qualcomm Incorporated was likely necessary to guard against copycat tactics. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. ordered Qualcomm to postpone its annual shareholder meeting for 30 days so that it can investigate Broadcom's $100 billion takeover bid for the chipmaker. In a statement on Monday, Broadcom said Qualcomm secretly filed a voluntary request with CFI US in a blatant, desperate act to protect its board from the upcoming proxy fight. "I'm skeptical Qualcomm needed to request an official CFI US review for seeds of doubt to be planted in shareholders' minds about an eventual deal's odds of regulatory approval." Multiple reports last week revealed that some members of CFI US, which is charged with reviewing foreign takeovers for national security risks, felt obligated to intervene ahead of the shareholder vote. They're worried Broadcom, a known cost-cutter, will hobble Qualcomm's ability to compete in the race for 5G technology. But meanwhile, Broadcom has been dismissive and inflexible on meaningful antitrust issues and has declined to enhance the $8 billion breakup fee that, large as it is, isn't high enough for a deal of this magnitude. Here's a look at the biggest reverse termination fees among large takeovers tracked by Bloomberg source. Bloomberg note, Fox Disney, Aetna CVS, NXP Qualcomm and Monsanto Bayer are all still pending. CFI US has been especially critical of semiconductor deals lately. It killed Canyon Bridge Capital Partners' purchase of Lattice Semiconductor Corporation and helped drag out the closing of Broadcom's $5.9 billion takeover of Brocade Communications Systems Incorporated. The latter, of course, closed inconspicuous 2 weeks after Broadcom CEO Hock Tan held a press conference with President Donald Trump to announce the company's plan to move its incorporation from Singapore to America. U.S. companies, you see, aren't subjected to a CFI US review. Here's a sample of takeovers that have fallen apart amid scrutiny from CFI US source, Bloomberg. If there were any doubts about Broadcom's motives, the company's recent statements put those to rest. Upon completion of the redomiciliation, Broadcom's proposed acquisition of Qualcomm will not be a CFI US covered transaction, Broadcom said on Monday. Okay then, whether or not you believe in the mythical $20 billion in revenue President Trump thinks Broadcom will bring into the US, regulators risked setting a dangerous precedent by looking the other way. In a letter to Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, U.S. Senator John Cornyn suggests the absence of a review could encourage other foreign suitors to pursue proxy fights as a way to take effective control of a U.S. company without having to go through all the CFI US rigmarole a standard takeover would entail. I've also wondered whether foreign buyers might take it one step further and mimic Broadcom's plan to reincorporate in the US as a way to avoid a CFI US review. While Broadcom initially spiked on news of its interest in Qualcomm, shares of the chipmaker have since fallen amid skepticism of regulatory approval. Source, Bloomberg. According to tax expert Bob Willens, moving your incorporation to the U.S. is a relatively easy process and involves no tax penalties for shareholders. You don't necessarily have to do a lot of business here, nor do you need to do much to hide your true intentions. As we know from Broadcom, if Broadcom can pull off a takeover of Qualcomm, by far the biggest technology deal ever attempted, it's not hard to imagine a Chinese company getting inspired to also move to America and avoid the CFI US reviews that have thwarted so many of its compatriots. That would give President Trump something to tout on Twitter, but I am skeptical as to how much a company's allegiances and business plan are ultimately swayed by the location of its legal mailbox. Let's not forget that when Broadcom was created through the merger of Avago Technologies Limited and Broadcom Corporation, in 2016, executives went to a lot of trouble to base the surviving entity in Singapore. The deal was technically an inversion, Willens said. Just a few years later, with certain tax breaks from Singapore now set to expire earlier than expected in 2021, Broadcom is willing to jump ship. Whatever CFI US's ultimate stance on a Qualcomm takeover, Broadcom's maneuvers deserve a close look. This column does not necessarily reflect the opinion of Bloomberg LP and its owners. To contact the author of this story, Brooke Sutherland in New York at Sutherland7@bloomberg.net. To contact the editor responsible for this story, Beth Williams at BWilliams@bloomberg.net.